I spent 30 years in tech and I learned one thing early. If your systems have a bug, they crash. But if your relationships have a bug, they ruin your life. And I don't mean the dramatic kind of ruin. Not the betrayal, not the blowout fight, not the partner who cleans out the bank account. I mean the slow kind. The kind that looks like loyalty. The kind that shows up to your barbecue, drinks your bourbon, tells you you're doing great, and quietly siphons 10 years off your trajectory. That kind. About 3 years ago, I sat down and did something I'd never done before. I took every single relationship in my life, personal and professional, and I ran an audit. Not a feelings audit, a performance audit. Same way I'd assess a vendor, a hire, or a system architecture. Inputs, outputs, risk exposure, trajectory alignment. And the results wrecked me. Not because I found enemies. I found something worse. I found dead weight disguised as friendship. I found people I'd been carrying for a decade who had never once lifted a finger when I was face down in the dirt. I found what I now call friendship liabilities, people who existed in my life not because they added value, but because I'd never had the spine to remove them. Here's where most men get this wrong. We're told that loyalty means permanence, that a good man stands by his people no matter what. But your grandfather lived in a world where social bonds were forged by proximity, shared labor, and genuine interdependence. You lived next to someone for 40 years. You built a barn together. That relationship was stress-tested by reality every single week. Your friendships, most of them were stress-tested by nothing. They survived because nobody applied pressure. That's not loyalty. That's inertia. So let me walk you through what happened. I made a list. 47 people, everyone in my personal circle, my professional network, my mentorship relationships, all of it. And I asked 5 questions about each one. Not emotional questions, structural questions. 1. When was the last time this person challenged me on something that mattered? 2. If I called this person at 2 a.m. with a real problem, not a fun problem, a real one, would they show up? 3. Is this person's life trajectory moving in a direction I respect? 4. Have I ever seen this person take a hard stand when it cost them something? 5. Does this person make me sharper or do they make me comfortable? 47 people. When I was done, I had 11 left. 11. And the first feeling wasn't relief, it was grief. Because cutting 36 people out of your orbit, even quietly, even without drama, it feels like you're dismantling your own life. And the voice in your head says, you're being cold, you're being arrogant. Who do you think you are? I'll tell you who I think I am. I'm the commander of my own life. And a commander doesn't staff their operation with people who can't perform under pressure. That's not cruelty. That's architecture. Let me give you the framework. I call it the Vetting Gauntlet. Every human being who occupies space in your life is either an asset or a liability. There is no neutral. Because neutral people still consume your time, your energy, your attention, and your bandwidth. Every minute you spend managing a mediocre relationship is a minute you're not investing in one that actually moves the needle. Think of your inner circle as your supply chain. In business, if your supply chain has a weak link, the whole operation is exposed. You don't keep a vendor that delivers late 50% of the time because they're nice or because you go way back. You replace them. Your relationships work the same way. So here's how the gauntlet works. 3 gates. Every person in your life has to pass through all 3 or they're out. Gate 1. Reciprocity under pressure, not reciprocity when things are good. Anyone can buy you a beer on a Saturday. I'm talking about reciprocity when it costs something. When you need help moving and it's raining. When you're going through a divorce and you need someone to just sit there and not try to fix it. Reciprocity under pressure reveals character. Everything else reveals social skills. The friend who's always available for fun but vanishes during hardship. The one who's first to the party but last to the hospital. You know exactly who I'm talking about. You've been making excuses for that person for years. Oh, they're just not good with heavy stuff. No, they're not good with you. They're good with the version of you that entertains them. The version that doesn't need anything. That's not a friend. That's an audience member. And here's another one. The person who only calls when they need something. Pay attention to the pattern. When was the last time they reached out without an ask attached? When was the last time they checked in on you when you hadn't posted anything, hadn't won anything, hadn't done anything interesting? Because some people don't maintain relationships, they maintain access. You're not their friend, you're their resource. And the moment you stop being useful, you'll find out exactly how deep that bond goes. I had a guy in my circle for 12 years. We'd been through job changes, relocations, health scares, all of it. And when I started my second company and hit a genuinely terrifying cash flow crisis, I called him. Not for money, for a conversation. He texted back 2 days later, "Hey, sorry, been slammed. Let's catch up soon." We never caught up. And that silence taught me more about that relationship than 12 years of dinners ever did. Gate 2, trajectory alignment. And this one is brutal. And it's the one that gets me the most pushback. People say, "Stacy, you can't just cut people because they're not as ambitious as you." And my answer is, watch me. I'm not talking about income or job titles. I'm talking about direction. Is this person actively building something? Are they getting better in any dimension, physical, mental, professional? Or are they exactly where they were 3 years ago, doing the same things, having the same complaints, and calling it balance? Here's what happens when you surround yourself with people who aren't moving. You slow down. Not because they drag you, because you unconsciously calibrate to your environment. Mirror neurons. Social proof. Herd behavior. You are the average of the people you spend the most time with, and that's not a motivational poster. That's neuroscience. It's the buddy who's been about to start that business for 4 years. It's the friend who complains about his marriage every time you see him, but has never once gone to counseling or had the actual conversation with his wife. It's the guy who talks about getting in shape every January and quits by February every single year and somehow expects you to take him seriously when he gives you advice about discipline. These aren't bad people. They might be kind. They might be funny. They might be the best person to watch a game with on a Sunday, but you are not building a social calendar. You are building an operating system, and every component in that system either performs or it gets replaced. Gate 3. The capacity for controlled danger. This is where I lose people. But stay with me. I don't trust harmless men, not because I want violence, because harmlessness is not a virtue. It's a default setting. A man who can't be dangerous isn't peaceful, he's just weak. And weakness disguised as kindness is the most dangerous thing in your inner circle. I want men around me who have teeth. Men who have cultivated capability, discipline, physical strength, the ability to say no and mean it, and who choose restraint not because they can't act, but because they've decided not to. That's the difference between a house cat and a lion lying in the shade. One is calm because it has no options. The other is calm because it doesn't need to prove anything. When you run your circle through these 3 gates, you're going to lose people. A lot of people. And what comes next is the part nobody talks about. The relationship recession. There will be a period, could be 3 months, could be a year, where your social life looks like a wasteland. Friday nights get quiet, your phone stops buzzing, and every instinct you have is going to scream at you to go back, to lower your standards just to fill the silence. Don't. Strategic solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the absence of connection without purpose. Strategic solitude is the deliberate clearing of space so that the right connections can form. You can't fill a glass that's already full of dirty water. You have to dump it out first. During my relationship recession, I did 3 things. 1, I went deep on the relationships that survived the gauntlet. Those 11 people, I invested in them like they were my portfolio. Longer conversations, harder questions, more vulnerability, more accountability. Those 11 people are now the reason I can operate at the level I do. 2, I used the silence to rebuild my own operating system. I implemented the analog anchor. 1 hour a day of zero input, no phone, no music, no podcasts, no people. Just me and my own thoughts. The first 2 weeks were miserable. Because when you strip away all the noise, you're left with yourself. But after those 2 weeks, clarity. The kind that comes from being alone long enough that you can actually hear your own signal through the noise. Once you've tasted real silence, the noise of a shallow friendship becomes physically irritating. You stop craving connection for connection's sake. You start craving signal. That shift is worth more than any networking event you've ever paid for. 3, I got ruthless about communication quality. I started applying the brevity protocol. Words are currency, and most people are broke. They talk for 20 minutes to say what could be said in 2. I started leading every conversation with the conclusion, not the backstory. The conclusion. Here's what I need. Here's what I think. Here's what I'm going to do. And then, only if asked, the supporting evidence. The people who couldn't handle that level of directness self-selected out. They called me cold. They said I'd changed. And they were right. I'd stopped performing accessibility for people who weren't worth the bandwidth. And the people who stayed, they matched it. Our conversations got sharper, our decisions got faster, our trust got deeper. So here's where I land. You're living in the middle of a relationship recession, whether you've chosen it or not. The data is clear. Men have fewer close friends than at any point in modern history. Loneliness is at epidemic levels. And the default response is to complain about it, to blame women, blame culture, blame technology, blame whatever target is trending this week. That's reactive. That's drift. That's a man standing in the current complaining about the direction of the river instead of building a boat. What I'm giving you is the boat. The vetting gauntlet isn't about bitterness or misanthropy. It's about deciding that you're going to treat the most important infrastructure in your life, the people around you, with the same rigor you'd apply to your finances, your health, or your career. Right now, most of you are running your relationships on autopilot. You're keeping people because they've always been there. You're avoiding hard conversations because you don't want to be that guy. You're letting the quality of your inner circle be determined by accident, by proximity, by history, by anything other than deliberate choice. And that autopilot, it's the bug, the one that doesn't crash your system overnight. It just degrades performance year after year until one day you wake up at 45 or 55 and realize the people around you can't help you build the life you actually want because you never required them to. Run the audit. Ask the 5 questions, apply the 3 gates, endure the recession, and build the circle you actually deserve. You don't need permission to do this. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to send a text that says, I'm removing you from my life. That's dramatic. That's performative. That's the kind of thing people do when they want credit for the decision rather than the result. Just get quiet. Let the invitations slow down. Let the calls get shorter. Let the distance do the work. The people who notice and fight to close the gap, pay attention to them. They might surprise you. The people who don't notice at all, you have your answer, 11 people. That's all I needed. That's all you'll need too. Maybe fewer. The question isn't how many people are in your life. The question is how many of them make you dangerous. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. It keeps the motor running. And if you'd like to learn more, check out my books on Amazon or click the links below.